December meeting of the Delaware County Jail Oversight Board. If we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
United States of America. And to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Joining us remotely today, we have two board members. Judge Pagano, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. King, can you hear us okay?
Yes.
All right, great. As some housekeeping, as always, we had an executive session held prior to today's meeting. Sorry, not today's, prior to today, but yesterday. And during it, we discussed individual personnel issues, the status of collective bargaining negotiations, plans and ongoing security-related capital improvements, and the internal investigation of contraband, inmate misconduct, inmate injuries, and correctional officers' use of force per normal. With that, we'll move to the next item on our agenda, which is public comment on specifically agenda items. And as always, we have two rounds of comment. The first round is specifically on items that are on our agenda for consideration today. The second at the end can be more generally about matters pertaining to the Delaware County Jail. If you have something to bring forth, please do so within 3 minutes time and give your name and your township at the start of your comments. Are there any comments to start our meeting? That would be at the end. I'm sorry, if it's about something specifically on the agenda, you can speak now. Afterwards? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to an approval of the November minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion for approval of the November minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Love. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Do we have approval from the?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to an approval of the November reports. Is there a motion to approve?
Make the motion to approve the reports.
Controller, thank you, Controller Phillips. Ms. Love, any questions or comments on the reports from last month? None, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next item for today is the Executive Director's report. Executive Director O'Malley.
Yes, hello. I did want to make a mention about the Jail Oversight Board membership. We did have some terms that are expiring in November, and we do have 3 resident openings for the board. Applications can be found on our website at delcopa.gov under boards and commissions, and people are encouraged to apply. We did want to make sure that we gave ample opportunity for residents and individuals to learn about this. We'll be putting this out more in social media to make sure we get as many applicants as possible. And we hope to have those new members on board in January. If you noted that Brian Corson has tendered his resignation as a board member, having had her serve 2 terms and being an excellent member for us, someone who is deeply involved and committed to the health, welfare, and well-being of incarcerated persons and doing tremendous work. And he has offered to, of course, assist us and provide his expertise in any other relevant way. And we are looking forward to, as we see applicants come in, finding ways to incorporate their ideas, even if we don't have the membership slots on our board available. But anyone who is interested in this issue and this cause, we really want to be a part of, we want them to be a part of this team and part of our decision making. So glad to have people apply. And again, even if you're not able to fill one of those positions, we hope to be able to engage you in some way or manner. I did want to mention that for the county, it is our budget period time. We do have a budget proposal before council. It should be voted on tomorrow evening. I appreciate everyone at the facility providing information. I see Deputy Mastrati there providing a lot of our numbers, and the warden and the entire team. It is always a difficult time, but we know that To be a well-run facility takes resources. And as a jail oversight board, I hope we have found that while we haven't been able to perhaps provide everything that is needed immediately, that you see our commitment to making this facility both physically and through its staff the best it can possibly be, providing staff with the resources and environment that they need to succeed and to thrive, and as well as the incarcerated people to have the services and environment they need to get themselves back on track and to have a successful reentry into society. We are always thrilled to see additional resources and programming that have come through grants that are applied for. I suspect we might have an announcement this evening about another grant, and the wonderful work that is being done by everybody at all levels in this facility. We've said it before, it merits saying at every meeting, the conditions at the facility are one that needs to be ideal for both the staff and the incarcerated persons. And that involves us as the Jail Oversight Board understanding and advocating for the needs, listening to both staff, management, residents, and others that have input into what makes a great facility, and us advocating to our council on the appropriate allocation of resources for this facility. And we are very hopeful that this year in that budget that will be approved will be resources to do a lot of good things at the facility, both for the physical environment and for the staff as well. So looking forward to that resolution of our budget, hopefully tomorrow, and be able to move forward and maybe talk about that in a little more detail later. And then finally, I wanted to address an issue that came up at a different meeting, but that was the issue of a new policy that the county has instituted. I believe there might have been a misunderstanding or misinterpretation that it was a facility, GW Hill facility policy, or that it was implemented by the warden. It is a county-wide policy that the county implemented regarding personal relationships between staff. The county is now requiring staff persons to provide documentation if they are in a relationship with another individual, regardless of same department, regardless of the level of staff people are at. The county implemented this policy in order to protect our staff, in order to protect our residents, and to assure and reduce any potential for harassment or retaliation or discrimination. We are requiring it. It is part of the handbook. It is something that we will keep track of. Again, we are not doing this to invade privacy, but to make sure that we are monitoring any types of issues that could arise, that there's documentation that people cannot at a later date suggest that there either was or was not a relationship. So we highly encourage anybody, if you are in a personal relationship. There's also clearer policy on familial relationship. Again, that is a policy of the county, not of the facility. And want to make sure that people are aware that there are appropriate avenues. If people believe that there are violations of this policy, if people have concerns at any level that there is harassment, if there are relationships that might be inappropriate, there are various avenues, including confidential and anonymous sources for employees to provide this information to us, both as the Jail Oversight Board, myself as Executive Director, Human Resources, and County Council. It is imperative that we treat this responsibly and that we take very seriously any comments regarding any abuse or inappropriate relationships. These are not rumors that should be thrown about. These are not accusations or tools that should be used to embarrass or demean people. These are serious issues that we take seriously, and we hope that if people genuinely believe that there is an inappropriate relationship, some sort of issue that is causing concern, they bring it to our attention through the appropriate avenue, again, through human resources, either within the facility, within the county, the executive director's office, the jail oversight board, or council. And I will make sure, and again, that everybody is aware of these various tools and that they are aware of how they can address those issues. And this applies not simply to George W. Hill facility, but again, what I said about the policy and what I just said about the various avenues and ways that those issues should be addressed applies to every single county employee. That's all I have for this evening.
Thank you, Director O'Malley. Moving on to the Warden's report. Warden Williams.
Good evening, and thank you very much. Sean will cue up the presentation for this evening, and we will kick off though it's the final meeting for this calendar year, in January, we will wrap up all of the data points from 2024. So we will make sure that we provide a little bit more comprehensive review on what we've seen regarding trends in the 2024 calendar year. So again, when we do our reports, these are look backs from the previous month. And we tested this out right before the meeting, and now the clicker is not working. I'm so sorry, Sean.
Sean?
It's not his fault. It's likely user error. Our typical first slide includes our current population. As of this morning, 1,183 incarcerated persons, which is an increase of 10 from last month's meeting. We had 14 participants in the weekender program. Again, these are individuals who are sentenced by judges to participate in weekends. They are required to self-commit each weekend. Usually those sentences are 72 hours at a time, of which they are then released until they have fulfilled their full requirement of weekend sentences. 8 of the 14 were first timers and 3 were female. We had 480 commitments with 466 discharges, and you can see the anomalies to when we were unable to provide full recreation. There was an instance on, and just to clarify, because we had an internet outage on November 5th, internet is how we utilize most of our systems, to include electronic health records, so medication administration records known as MARS, as well as the offender management system is a cloud-based system. And that is where we catalog an enormous amount of information. So movement, location, whether or not somebody has pending charges, that's one of the systems that we use to verify. There are several others. So that significantly disrupted operations on the 5th. And I thought it was meaningful to ensure that that was addressed in this meeting. Our population trends have continued, and I did change the graph for the sentenced versus pretrial. Usually we report this in percentage, which may or may not have meaning. So I think it is meaningful to recognize that 1,067 of right now the 1,183 are currently not sentenced in the institution. It is a large majority of the population that is pretrial or going through their adjudication process.
Ward, if I could interrupt you for a moment.
Sure.
There are, and I think some of these charts that you go through, you do sort of show trends over time.
Mm-hmm.
Others, I don't think it necessarily has to be part of the monthly template, but it might be helpful. For example, and this may be a terrible example, but like the weekender program, it's hard, absent like looking back over a number of months, to see where those things are trending. If there's an opportunity, I think in future months, just to call out any movements in some of the numbers you go through, I think it'd be helpful for us, for the public to put these into better context.
Sure. And that's a great, kind of feedback for next month's meeting, especially when we do a full evaluation and review. So we'll be sure to be diligent of requiring some of those trends.
Yeah,
as
maybe
well.
it's like a semi-annual kind of a thing.
Okay.
I don't think it's every month.
Generally speaking, the majority of them remain stable in the institution. Where we do see the most movement is usually within the healthcare statistics. But I also think that it's worth discussing, reporting on, and making sure that that information is available. Again, age population, I included the whole number with this month, as well as the whole number for race and ethnicity. So one of the grants that Director O'Malley had referenced was the Substance Use Reentry Grant. And within that grant, they talk about, racial disparity and inequities in incarceration settings, and the challenges and limitations with reintegration support for marginalized communities who may or may not have the same level of access or support within those communities or through their discharge process. And that is one of the goals of the federal grant funding, to make sure that we're filling those gaps. We see that within the institution. There is racial inequity within the institution. It does not match the census for Delaware County when you look at the percentages. And so that is part of the reason why we also report on these numbers, because that does contribute to ways that we are able to hopefully leverage additional funds to support not just the agency in reducing the burden to the taxpayer, but to make sure that we are providing meaningful services to the population. So as I had indicated before, we tend to see more movement within the behavioral health statistics, and I've actually highlighted because Our patients with AMI has increased significantly. That is not something that is uncharacteristic for this time of year. Incarceration during this time of year, both seasonally, there's a lot of research on seasonal affective disorder, as well as challenges with adjustment within the carceral setting during time periods in which we are separated from family during holiday. And so we saw a pretty significant increase. We also noticed, and I know I've talked about this, kind of the ebb and flow of those with serious mental illness, an increase of those coming into the institution as well. It is not unsustainable, but it is absolutely a challenge. So when we talk about resources, we do have some capital projects, hopefully to address the management and housing of individuals who have more complex needs. And we will be looking towards additional training opportunities within the 2025 calendar year to better support staff in the management of these individuals. Go ahead, Deb.
Are these diagnoses, do the residents enter with these diagnoses, or are they diagnosed while incarcerated?
Both. So some individuals we have verified because they come in, they sign releases, and we're able to verify the diagnoses, either the ICD-10 codes from their community treatment provider or direct hospitalization. Some people are admitted to us directly from the hospital, unfortunately. So we would, of course, want to verify those diagnoses to be true, but we are diagnosing a large volume of individuals. And so you'll see in later slides, we have a lot of initial psychiatric assessments that are taking place. Some people are undiagnosed in the community. Some people have been previously engaged in behavioral health services, but for whatever reason, there's been a gap in care, and maybe we see a progression of illness. We have several qualified professionals, whether they're psychologists or psychiatrists on site, that are responsible for doing diagnosing. Even though independently licensed social workers or professional counselors could diagnose, that's not the practice in our agency. It has to be at a doctoral level. Can be at a nurse practitioner level too as well.
I think, unfortunately, not altogether surprising trend, but I think it's a pretty meaningful jump up, and more than we've really seen across the mental illness numbers there. And there's no abnormality that you can think of. It's not like we are looking at, diagnosing anything else about how we're collecting this information that might explain it, or it really just does seem like there's been an uptick.
There has been an uptick. We require the same diagnostic information to be in the electronic health record, which is where we pull these reports from. We make sure that we're not duplicating individuals, that these are unique numbers. Now, this may not be, so this was within an entire calendar month. We had 990 individuals. And so we did have some people come and go. It doesn't necessarily mean that 990 of the 1,183 today have diagnoses of some form of any mental illness, but we are seeing a much higher volume. And I don't know what it's directly correlated to. There are challenges within the community. We have previously spoken about efforts within, Kensington, where there have been individuals who have been found either with warrants or criminal histories, or engaged in alleged crimes when they have done some of these efforts within the community, which also is driving some of these numbers. But it's hard to really evaluate what is pushing this so far up.
I know that you keep some form of ongoing dialogue with your colleagues in other facilities in the area, and I guess you're not hearing any sort of consistency of this.
I don't think any of them have experienced this significant of a jump. They are all seeing, and we do typically, with the season change, an increase. So go ahead.
Actually, I have a question for you, Chairman. Does our health department record any of these type of stats for our general population in the county to see if there's just the generalized uptick, just like we compared it to racial differences? Are we aware of anything like that, or is it a stat that we could get? I don't mean put you on the spot to answer now, but
Yeah, I don't believe so. I mean, they're looking at more with regards to any upticks in, diseases, if there's
not behavioral health issues.
behavioral health, not in a real-time way, the way we're
Got it.
talking about here, that I'm aware of.
Yeah, it was just what made me think was some of the comments about how some of the statistics, how it relates to the general population of the county.
Yeah.
Would we have a comparison for that as well? Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess my last kind of color commentary on it is we obviously are challenged, as every corrections institution is across the state and largely across the country, with regards to staffing. But I think in the area of medical broadly stated, it's particularly challenging. And so, I think this just really amplifies that need to whatever we can do to continue to try to, hire more and be fully staffed.
Mhm. Very much agreed. Making sure that full-time equivalent positions are filled, of which we do remain with vacancies within the healthcare department. We are fortunate. What I will say about that department is that they have a cadre of PRN staff. So while they may not be routinely scheduled, we do have dedicated professionals who are signing up for shifts to work and provide coverage and care within the institution. So we'll continue to work with WellPath to make sure those vacancies get filled.
Okay.
In this next slide, I did collapse a bit some of the categories of which we had 0. So we did not induct anybody to methadone last month. We did not continue anybody on Vivitrol because nobody came in on Vivitrol. And we did not induct anybody to Vivitrol. There were 0 requests for induction to Vivitrol. This was hopefully to make it a little bit more readable, because I know it's a lot of numbers and it gets very small. We have 191 patients that are in some form of medication for opioid use disorder treatment, representing 16% of the population. We did complete 8 inductions in the last month, which is on the lower side of what we typically like to see. But again, with these increased funding that we should be receiving for the federal government, pending acceptance from council's perspective, we will be able to fill additional full-time positions to offer increased services. And we anticipate those numbers for induction increasing.
Excellent. I think that's a noteworthy point. Just one other interesting that Vivitrol is really not being administered, and that was the only form of MAT that existed here prior to 2022 or thereabouts. So I think it is noteworthy that it really is not the preferred route for the vast majority.
I think too, treatment courts or diversion courts have educated themselves based on the recommendations that have been presented through the federal government level, as well to both state and county agencies, that there is more recommendation, not for abstinence-based, of which Vivitrol or naltrexone tends to be considered that, and more in the agonist, whether that's a partial or a full agonist medication, and harm reduction. And so I believe that there has been an evolution, whether it's been discussed or not, in which the courts have been very supportive of that change, because many of the Vivitrol programs, and I wasn't here when that was instituted, but at least in my last jurisdiction, that was really driven by the courts and wanting to assist and direct people to treatment. And so we've seen a definite shift.
Yeah, and I want to recognize that, because you're right. I think when I first joined the board and prior, the view was it has to be Vivitrol because it has to be a full, agonist. And I think there's been a real noteworthy evolution in what they support.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was doing well for a minute and I'm not anymore. Sean, thank you. Our employees of the month, within the last calendar month, we recognize Christopher Clyde, correctional officer, Hillary Jones, substance use counselor, Salim Jones, lieutenant, and they were three of the many individuals who were nominated within this last calendar month. Both Christopher Clyde and Lieutenant Jones have been really standout. The facility has been onboarding a new software, which was obtained through jail oversight support quite some time ago. We finally reached the level of instituting this software for increased documentation as well as movement for the agency. And these two individuals were responsible for training a large volume of staff. They did that in addition to, not in replace of, but in addition to their other duties. Were motivated and enthusiastic, willing to learn, and willing to champion that with others. Hillary Jones, I know we've spent a lot of time talking about substance use. While medications for opioid use disorder are very important programs to have, there's been a long-standing substance use core team at the agency, and Hillary Jones has been there for more than 2 decades, serving Delaware County in general. And so most of the court systems are familiar with PrEP 1, PrEP 2, and she has been somebody who has really been committed to that mission, relating with the clients, developing and establishing rapport, and seeing success along the way. We also want to make sure that we acknowledge and thank those that have committed years of service. And so you'll see all those that are celebrating anniversaries within the month of December. We're extraordinarily grateful. We have had many who have joined within the last couple of years, but these employees in particular, several of them have survived several transitions of operations at the agency. And so it's important that we acknowledge and recognize the amount of years of service they've dedicated to this work. Our training academy, we hosted a graduation last month on November 22nd, right before the Thanksgiving holiday. Judge Amoroso, former member of the Jail Oversight Board, administered the oath and provided a few words. I do believe that we will have our new judge at this upcoming month's graduation, and we're very excited. Thank you so much for volunteering your time and services to be able to support our staff. It's a really important exercise to go through in the administration of the oath. So we will have that graduation on December 20th, right before the Christmas holiday. And we are beginning our final class for the 2024 calendar year. They will not graduate this year, but they will be starting on December 16th, so next month. And then we will start the continued efforts to recruit in 2025 and hopefully really close that gap on those vacancies that we have remaining. For capital improvements and projects, I've highlighted what has been different since the last month. So our administration roof project was completed on 11/13/24 in any of the major construction item. At that time, a punch list or a closeout list was developed. As of 12/6/24, one of the county architects from the Public Works Department, as well as WTI and Tremco and the George W. Hill staff that had been overseeing this project, did their survey to close out and complete all of the punch list items. There is one item that is remaining, and that will be remaining until the spring, and that is the restoration of the lawn. That was, of course, impacted by the movement or storage of any supplies for the project, as well as the heavy machinery and equipment. So we will be making sure that that is completed. I wanted to make sure that I took the opportunity to publicly state that this project was so successful. The partnership with WTI and Tremco was remarkable. They were communicative, they were responsive, they hosted weekly meetings with us in a very formal setting, which included both on-site leadership from their organizations, as well as off-site leadership with their organizations. They provided our agency with daily reports, with pictures. If there were issues, we were brainstorming them. They were so solution-focused in making sure we would get to this mission, even when elements of adversity, such as weather, which we can't predict or control, as well as the supply chain issues because of the tropical storm. They were with us the whole time. And then I need to particularly shout out Joe McCreary, Dan Ryder, and Steve Young. who, despite us changing the schedule, starting at 5 a.m. to minimize the disruption on shift change or any of the operations of the institution, they were there each day, making sure that all of the tools were accounted for, that the scene was safe, and that we were getting the work product that the county signed off for. I thought this was extremely well managed from the Department of Public Works. Their oversight and support of this really ensured that the money that the county invested from a capital expenditure was utilized appropriately. And so we do have other roof projects that are in the future. Having had such a successful one under our belt, I'm very hopeful for what the future holds for the much needed deferred capital investment in the institution. Speaking of our security systems project, we are doing our D-scope with our construction management firm, BSI, as well as professional services engineering and Delaware County Public Works, as well as representatives from the George W. Hill Correctional Facility, with the purpose and intent of understanding the project, the phasing plan and schedule, discussion on pricing, and reviewing the bid items, what might have been high or low compared to the estimates, confirming compliance with the project labor agreement, which was negotiated through Delaware County Council, discussion about availability of equipment and any supply chain issues that we might be able to foresee in advance and ensure that we're ordering with enough lead time, and their proposed staffing plan for their project. While we've already had some of these discussions, which I'm sure will impact their decision-making process, we'll be doing that formal engagement on Thursday, hopefully then talking about project start very soon.
I did want to ask about the roof project. Is staff moving back into that area?
Not yet. We still have significant work because of the damage, the leaking from the roof prior to its replacement or repair. We still have quite a bit of work to do on the inside. We had to remove carpet because there was belief of mold and mildew for quite some time. And so there is still investment that's needed in that area. It is our hope that in the early 2025 calendar year, we will be able to resituate our employees back to this area.
Is that work that's being done by internal staff?
Yes.
Okay.
As part of operating expenses. Speaking of roofs, so at the preliminary agenda meeting, this was presented by Danielle Floyd, who's the Director of Public Works, and it will hopefully be affirmed tomorrow officially by County Council. In 2021, there was a facility needs assessment that was conducted, and one of the areas that was identified during that assessment was the farm shop requiring replacement. We need to move forward with this project, but that also needs to be done in compliance with procurement procedures, with purchasing, as well as other county processes. So we are asking for the board to support the advertisement of this project for the replacement and repair. And so I've included some details of things that need to happen. There's new shingles, new gables, new rafters, new fascia, new soffit, et cetera, that will be required. And this is necessary for our agency so that we can appropriately store equipment and or supplies to ensure that we don't have any unnecessary waste, we are able to control items, and that we can readily provide what is needed to operate the institution.
Yeah, and just I guess to put a finer point on it. So we had the county council agenda meeting prior to this one this afternoon, and there was discussion of the matter. It hasn't yet been voted upon. That would happen tomorrow evening. So, you know, just in terms of the timing, we're wanting to bring this before the Jail Oversight Board at this meeting. So the motion would be, if there's support for it, to support the advertising for a bid to proceed with the farm shop roof replacement project. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Your Honor. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sheriff. With the motion a second, is there any further questions or comments about this project before we proceed to a vote? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you. So similar to the summer months where we were providing routine updates related to the HVAC units, it is that time of year again when the weather chill and air temperature is definitely impacting the institution. The top categories, of which I do not need to read through, everybody can do that, are areas that are currently operating with no reported issues. Areas that were recently repaired, Unit 5, the temperatures were too warm. These have been lowered and evaluations of the system were completed to ensure that temperatures remain stable. Unit 5 hallway was completed today for repair. Unit 8, the repair was completed today and the hallways were as well with a heat level adjustment for the classroom. Unit 9, we were resourceful in removing working parts in Unit 2 because that unit is presently closed and we were unable to immediately get parts. So we will be back ordering and replacing those. Unit 2 is closed. Unit 9 is fully inhabited. That is now fully operational. Repairs were made last week. Unit 10 hallway was repaired today. We still have several areas, as you can see below, that require repair. Intake parts have been received. Repair is scheduled for 12/12. Video arraignment and investigations shares a unit. We're working with Siemens. This is actually a control board issue. It's an electronic issue, not a unit issue. And so we're trying to figure out why that is a disconnect. And those temperatures are elevated. It's very warm in those areas. Unit 2 hallway, Siemens computer issue, parts are ordered. Main hallway between Unit 7 and 8, a motor needs replaced and those parts are ordered. The large gymnasium, the entire unit needs to be replaced. Work is not yet scheduled. And master control, the issue has been identified. Coils need to be cleaned and reinstalled and scheduled for next week. And on previous slides, we indicated that this is a project, a capital project that was announced in 2022 and simply has not yet started due to allocation of funding not occurring. It is still very much on our radar. I've said it before, and I know it doesn't help the matter. These units are well beyond their life cycle. We continue to complete emergency repairs to make sure that it is safe as much as in with our control as possible. If we need to issue additional blankets to areas, we certainly do that. We evaluate the temperatures and monitor those as well. It is not perfect. It needs work. It needs repair. That requires commitment and projects starting to have these units replaced. When that project does start, and we don't have a start date for it yet, it is anticipated that it will take approximately 24 months because it will be done in a phased schedule. And so while we've said that before, maybe not so explicitly in a meeting, and it's important to share that information.
Yeah.
This is sorry, go ahead.
Before you move on, I mean, I think we all wish we could wave a magic wand and be at the end of the multitude of capital projects that need to be invested here. This is the facility that we inherited. That is the fact. And I think we're keenly aware of the impact that the HVAC system being in the state that it's in. We certainly applaud the work of maintenance with bubble gum and duct tape, kind of keeping things in some semblance of order. But there is sort of a sequence that makes sense from a capital investment perspective to go in order. And unfortunately, the HVAC system is not the first one in that order. So I appreciate your doing what's necessary, which is to ensure that we are aware, that the public is aware that these are projects that will take a while and the impact that it has on the facility. And, again, I wish we could wave a magic wand, but we live in a capital constrained environment. And as you well know, tomorrow when we talk about the county's budget, we will hear the other side of this of how we're, in the opinion of some, free spending. So there is that conflict that we face on county council between the urgency to spend these dollars and the impact it has on those who are paying for it, which is the taxpayer.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to comment on this issue too, because I really do want to focus on the staff impact. It is a difficult job under any circumstances. And then when you have something, what should be as simple and basic as temperature, be a problem for you, an issue for you, especially when you're cold it makes the job that much harder. And I do think we need to think about ways about addressing the stress, the additional stress that this kind of temperature brings to people. I will say in this building, reports of other buildings across the county, when it was really cold 2 weeks ago for the first time, departments also suffered extreme cold. So it's not unique to this facility. What is challenging, though, is some departments send their employees home. They can work from home. They have options. There are no options here. People have no choice but to work this job in a facility under very difficult conditions. So I don't want to minimize the impact to the individuals that have to endure these temperatures, cold in the winter, hot in the summer, and making sure that we're reaching out and finding ways to support and acknowledge what, in addition to a difficult job, is added to it because of these challenges. I don't know that there's anything extra we can do, but if there is anything, again, I definitely think this is an additional stressor for people until this gets to be resolved. And whatever we can do, or the way staff can be heard, or any different, whether it's, and I know that's very difficult for a facility to incorporate breaks. It's all those kind of things that you think in a different office setting you might be able to do that you just don't have as tools available to you. So I just really want to acknowledge that. And if there are any creative ways, either from anybody here or anybody listening, to make it a little more bearable, I would love hearing it.
I want to make sure we don't overstate the issue, though, either, right? And I think the actual circumstances where temperatures are truly extreme, maybe, not with ideal 70 degrees is one thing, but truly extreme on either way, I think is really far the exception than the rule because of the efforts of management to jump on them. And we do get these regularly, the updates of how frequent a cell block is actually in a truly severe temperature state. And it is, it is the decimal point of circumstances. It's not a common theme, but nevertheless, this is something that needs to be addressed so that we're not fixing these so frequently.
Yeah. Appreciate both of those points and feedback. And I think we're all better with additional information and ideas to brainstorm and solve. Hopefully a positive point to family members who might be watching. And if people aren't aware, the Federal Communications Commissions, this actually occurred in July of 2024, where there was a vote related to, and I included a quote on the right-hand side. The press release states, exorbitant phone and video call rates that have burdened incarcerated people and their families for decades. And I've also included the chart that was directly from that report in which those numbers or the pricing of phone calls is typically set, which is based on ADP. For those that aren't aware, ADP stands for average daily population. So our agency, if you've been following along with us, is over 1,000 individuals. The previous rates for phone calls were 16 cents a minute, effective January 1 of 2025. Those will automatically reduce. Nobody has to do anything. It will happen automatically to 6 cents a minute. Video visitation will reduce from 25 cents a minute to 11 cents a minute. And then this is something that I just wanted to be sure that people were aware. We're not making any changes to the bundle packaging. So this change is really as an effort for communication increase. So we're still working with our partner GTL to make sure that we have everything in line and in preparation to enact this in compliance with what was voted and passed. Cost recovery. And I do apologize. I know we had spoken about it last month. I failed to complete the formal proposal and did not also advertise it within the agenda related to the money that would be placed on incarcerated persons' accounts in which they could designate that for phone calls or video visits or entertainment or commissary. But we will have that formal presentation to the board in January of 25 and ensure that that's included on the agenda in advance so that individuals can provide public comment. And if there are no additional questions for me at this present time, I would love to pass this over to Deputy Warden Daley Fally. Thank you very much.
Good evening, board members, members of the public, and those who are watching online. Sean, you got me? Well, program support for the month of November, our graduation rate for GED is 61%. Currently, 61 IPs received their GED while they were in custody. 451 IP completed anger management. There was 228 new prep enrollment and 684 enrolled in NA, 330 in AA, and 127 IP completed CBT. A couple of highlights for the month of November. On November 5th, we completed our last cohort 5 for graduation for the fatherhood program. Thank you, Delaware County Foundation. 9 IP received their graduation. Thank you, Ms. Krusky and the team and Dr. O. On December 7th, we had our annual recertification for volunteers. 63 volunteers attended the recertification on Saturday. Thank you to all those volunteers. You're very dear to us, and your service is extremely important. Earlier in the early fall, Mr. Corson came up with an idea to partner with the health department. I'm here to announce that on December 18th, we're going to partner with the health department to conduct a pilot Narcan program for overdose prevention training for both the IPs and the correction population on both first and second shift. Looking forward to that. Delaware County Coalition for Prison Reform came and donated generously 3,722 cards this year as part of their annual card donation. Each case manager received a few boxes of holidays cards and have already started the process by encouraging the IPs to stay in touch with their loved ones. With the support of JOB, that's why all postage will be covered by the Inmate Welfare Fund. Thank you, Delco CPR, and especially boss, I can never pronounce the last name. Chickenelli, and Reverend Joe German, who came, and your congregation. Also want to thank all the case manager who really put all the efforts in it, and I will let you guys know on Friday who won this challenge. As of yesterday, 1,153 cards were mailed to IP's families. We are hiring. We're looking for case managers. We're looking for one substance use counselor and one wellness instructor. So anybody that's interested that would like to work in with our team, please visit our website, delco.pa.gov/employment, and all the positions are advertised on it. Before I have program administrator, Ms. Shaw, do you guys have any questions for me?
Any questions for the deputy?
Yes, I have some.
Go ahead, Raheem.
Yeah, it's about the cards. So I wanted to know, I know you guys, we get about 3,000 or maybe even whatever the number is for the cards. And I just heard some of them is put up if they're not given out. I don't know how many we give each resident, but is it possible that we can give all of those cards out so they won't be just sitting there until next year or whatever? I don't know what the process is directly, but I know there's a process and there's a protocol for each resident to get cards, and I'm sure we give them more than one. And I was just wondering if, or can we make sure we give out all of those cards so everyone can get one? So I'm sure there's a process. They got to put in a slip and and all that kind of stuff. But can we possibly give out all of those cards so they won't be sitting for a whole year?
So let me educate regarding the process. So each IP are receiving more than one. They have a maximum of 6 cards. So they don't have to put a slip in. When they call the case manager, when the case manager engage with them, they'll provide them with those cards. In regards of delivering all of those cards, we don't want to waste cards as well. So we also want to make sure that the cards are meaningful to the population. And not all IPs have are Catholic. Some of them range from different religion.
Okay, I understand. I wanted to make sure, maybe I make sure some id cards get in there as well for some people who are believing different, and then at least they can get a card too. And really, our whole intention is to make sure everybody gets a card, regardless of their belief.
Right. Thank you, sir. Any other questions?
Anything else for the Deputy Warden? Right.
Thank you, Program Manager Kelly Shaw.
Good evening, members of the board and the public. Updates on our two grant-funded programs. Public Health Management Corporation facilitates the Delco Reentry Program. And to new viewers, PHMC meets with clients bi-monthly to develop an individualized release plan with a focus on housing, employment, education, and community support. Volunteer enrollment is open to Delaware County residents with no exclusions of charges, and service extends 60 days post-release. In addition to connecting with clients while incarcerated, PHMC expanded their outreach and currently meets with parolees. Connection is made through the parole officer. Extended service to parolees has been successful, gaining 13 new participants. Our other reentry grant-funded program, The First Step, Education Data System, Inc., referred to as EDSI, facilitates the First Step Workforce Development Program. The 4-week course completed cohort 20 on November 21st. 6 individuals successfully completed the course. Monday, November 25th, began cohort 21, the last cohort for the year, and 5 males signed up for the course. Graduates of the program continue participation, meeting with the career counselor for biweekly one-on-ones. Additional reentry updates for the month of November include veteran engagement with the Delco Veterans Department, supported 3 participants. Volunteer Organizations Thresholds Decision-Making course had 10 participants for the month. Our in-house reentry case manager met 12 sentenced incarcerated persons to assist with discharge planning. Probation and parole's on-site drug and alcohol liaisons referred 51 to inpatient treatment. Volunteer Organization Maternity Care Coalition offered support and service to 1 female. Volunteer Organization Child, Family, and Focus met weekly with our 3 youthful offenders. In November, the organization began a new program with the youth. The Boys Council program utilizes cognitive-based therapy to examine gender norms, respect relationships, diversity, and building empathy. Volunteer professor from Widener University provided 1 financial literacy workshop serving 12 males in the month of November. And lastly, in the month of November, 574 electronic courses were completed on the tablet. Users can learn at their own pace and have free access to the educational platform, and education courses remain free after release. And last Tuesday, we celebrated our 3rd annual Inside Out Prison Exchange Program closing ceremony. To new viewers, Inside Out Prison Exchange is a global program. Inside refers to the incarcerated learners. Outside refers to local college students. Our outside students and professor are from Penn State Brandywine. Together, the inside and the outside students met once a week for 13 weeks in our visitation room to engage in a public speaking course. 18 students in total successfully completed the course, 8 inside and 10 outside. This year, we had a special guest speaker. The gentleman was a former student who recently gained employment with EDSI. And to help make the connection, EDSI currently facilitates the First Step program, which I mentioned earlier, and he was a graduate of our first Inside Out program. It was very inspiring to hear from a former graduate and see how the programming and employment came full circle. It was very powerful. In addition to board member Mr. Corson attending the ceremony, we had support from the First Step Program Director, Lauren Pearson, and Delaware County Workforce Development Board Executive Director, Kate McGeever. Both Ms. Pearson and Ms. McGeever continue to support initiatives at George W. Hill, including the facility's first job fair and receiving the Pathway Home 3 federal grant. And Public Director of Relations, Ryan Hellinger, provided the beautiful collage of pictures highlighting the ceremony highlights. And also Sean behind the scenes was very helpful in providing a video for loved ones to view post-ceremony. And personally, my favorite is the group photo of the class where it is impossible to differentiate between the inside students and the outside students. A huge thank you to Warden Williams and the board for their dedication and commitment to supporting and offering impactful programs. The innovation continues to provide opportunity to returning citizens. And of course, many thanks to Penn State Brandywine professor, Dr. Putman. Each year, she shows up full of encouragement and positivity, ready to create an inclusive environment where all learners have the opportunity to succeed and be heard. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to, I'm sorry that I was not able to make it this year. I've been to the last two graduations, and it really is remarkable. I mean, I remember when Dr. Putman reached out 3 years back and talked about the program generally and asked about support for having it in Delaware County. And for anyone who hasn't been able to be at the graduations, they really are powerful. To see the, metaphoric barriers that one might bring into an experience of coming into a jail, and how that dissolves over the course of the semester is really tremendous. And like you said, Kelly, the rapport that you see between the inside students and the outside students is really awesome. I think something like gaining confidence to speak publicly is such a core fear of so many people, and something that can be so impactful for someone who fundamentally quite often just lacks confidence, that they've been on the wrong side of the system, to gain that confidence when they leave and I think that example of your guest speaker, it's really neat.
Cool.
So glad to see it continues.
Yeah. Thank you for the support.
All right. Moving on to any new business from board members. If not, we'll move on to our second and final round of public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to address the board today?
Kimberly Brown, Cowin. The agenda wasn't posted on the website, which is against the Sunshine Act. Just want to put that on record. Of course, Brian Corson resigned. He should never been on the board from the beginning. Him and his partner has 20 recovery houses in Chester and 4 inpatient facilities, all paid by the county. Listen to staff, Ms. O'Malley. Yes, you guys are listening to staff, but we're not getting any good feedback from the county. Policies don't work at the jail. They pick and choose when they want to enforce policy. George W. Hill will never be fully staffed. Until you make it safe, it will never be staffed. It's funny that Lieutenant Jones was on the Employee of the Month and they treat him so bad at the jail, which is a slap in the face. But it's a joke that George W. Hill puts on. Also, I guess I didn't make the cut for the anniversary because I came up on coming up on my anniversary date tomorrow. It's not shocking that I didn't make it on the list. Joe McCreary, Steve Young, Ryder. They were just standing on the roof, so she gave them congratulations, and that's one of her little group of people that she liked in the jail. Miss O'Malley, the building's not being worked on because they have them covering other departments, which is only manned by one. Areas that's not reported. On the housing unit, Unit 4, the boiler is broke on Unit 4. The inmates cannot shower because the hot water pressure is broke, and she's fully aware of it. The cards, Mr. King, I just received my holiday cards, and I never knew it was a competition for the holiday cards. Last time I came to this meeting, it was very interesting, Judge. I spoke to you, Ms. Laura K. Williams right over here. She felt some type of way. And she put me under investigation. She called an outside law firm and put me under investigation for just speaking out on the jail. I've been retaliated against. I've been discriminated against. Deputy Warden Fowley is supposed to be my boss, but he's one of her posses. And he does whatever she tells him to do. And he try to nitpick, he discriminate. He never helps out in the case manager office. The jail needs help. Thank you.
Good evening. Clifford Brock, Yaden. Just like to first say thank you very much for the Oversight Committee for continuing to keep the residents updated as to what's going on. Part of the Coalition for Prison Reform, we fought hard and we continue to fight hard. So we are definitely thankful for other people stepping to the plate. Question, which is not really in a purview of this compared to Delaware County Council meetings, but because Delaware County Council meetings announced that there's a deficit, tax deficit, and it looks like it's going to continue even to the next 2 years, 2025, 2026. How does that play a role with the information that Warden gave us on the capital improvement projects or any other spending that the jail has to do? Clearly listening to the roof work that has already been delayed and put on hold, and now looking forward that it's going to be a 2-year project when and if it gets started. How does this play with the finance taking place with Delaware County taxes? I hope that makes sense.
Any other public comment?
I have to do this a couple times a year. Bob Ciccanelli, Haverford Township, representing Delco Coalition for Prison Reform. We'd like to thank everyone who donated the cards. Delco CPR is just the vehicle that gets them to you. And these cards came from citizens throughout the county. We do, and it was acknowledged that we have great thanks for the Episcopal Diocese of Delaware County and their 11 congregations who really contributed a lot of the cards this year. We hope it brings a little brightness inside the facility. We realize we can't turn it into a Merry Christmas for someone who's incarcerated. That's just not possible. So our wish, and I think it's on behalf of all who donated the cards, to everyone who lives in the facility and works in the facility, is we hope we bring peace and some hope for 2025. We'd like to thank Warden Williams and Deputy Warden Fowley, who took an hour out of their evening last Thursday to receive us and the cards, and to spend an hour talking with us about some new projects for next year that we can add to this, and also our ongoing role to monitor the progress of the many reforms that our group brought forward over the years. And finally, you know, we believe very strongly that engagement by the Delaware County citizens is crucial to success. So we look forward in our new year as the organization that's based in Delaware County and focused only on Delaware County, to rebuild our commitment to this process and also our level of contribution to the facility. Thank you.
Any other public comment for today? Hearing none, we'll move on to any last board member comments.
I did want to respond to a couple public comments. One, we did hear in advance about the concern about the agenda not being posted in a timely manner. According to our records from information technology, it was posted within 24 hours. So we can talk after the meeting about if it was not in the typical place or what challenge there was with seeing that it was posted. But according to our information technology department, it was posted in sufficient time and submitted by staff in sufficient time. Regarding the budget, I did want to say, yes, we do have obviously a capital budget and an operational budget. And fortunately, those projects are all in our capital budget. So again, while they are large sums of money, it is borrowed over a longer period of time. So there's not that acute impact. They are already underway in our budget, and we have every plan to continue forward with those projects. So we do not anticipate any circumstance under which those projects would be halted or delayed at this point. They are currently in our budget. Operationally, however, salaries, new positions, other smaller cost items, those can be a challenge year after year. And again, I think the Jail Oversight Board tries to do its best to understand some of the pressures. We appreciate the feedback from staff about what some of the items of concern, items of need are, and try to advocate to council for those items. So again, I don't want to speak for council. They have a big job to do, and they have a budget to vote on tomorrow. But hopefully, when that gets passed, we'll be able to have the prison operating with the budget that should be able to make some of the adjustments that we've been talking about and hoping to make. But again, that is an ongoing concern, and I appreciate the comments about getting residents involved and people involved to really truly understand and see what is happening there. Again, we speak a lot about the experience of the incarcerated person. We need to speak also about what is a nationwide crisis in the role of correctional officer. We are very concerned. This is a staff that needs support from one another, staff that needs support from administration that needs support from us. It is a nationwide crisis that really we should talk about more at these meetings. And talking about, the concerns. We need to make sure that our facility is safe, our staff are safe, the incarcerated persons are safe, and that's not easy to do. But we have seen tremendous improvements. We do make sure that we have staffing and staffing schedules that can work for people, and we will continue to advocate and understand needs and make sure we address those issues.
I had a couple of comments. One, I just wanted to say that I so appreciated having Mr. Corson on this board from the beginning, as well as the other citizen members, Ms. Love and Mr. King. Having the input from different perspectives on this board has been invaluable. So when we didn't know as much about treatment and recovery, or we didn't know as much about healthcare or insurance or nursing, or from Ms. Love's side, or from Mr. King's perspective on reentry and what was having to be dealt with within the jail, it was invaluable. We could never have known some of the things that we were able to put into this board. So I really appreciate his volunteerism and being on this board. The other thing I just wanted to comment on, I know County Council has a huge lift in dealing with the budget. And, I'm not sitting there. I don't have to make that vote, and it's hard. But I would like people to know that the people at the jail have advocated as hard as I think they possibly could for the things they feel are important for the jail, which are the capital improvements, the operating expenses, and the wages and salaries. They don't get what they all ask for. They can't. None of us, I have an operating department. None of us get what we all wish for our own departments, but be sure you can be confident that they go the whole way to try and get people's ears. They advocate, but we're all constrained, and they're just as constrained. They just live in a more sometimes critical environment than the rest of us. So when it is 54 degrees in my office, I can send people home. And they can't. So I just want people to know that behind the scenes, people work really hard to make the systems and our processes and our machines and our computers and everything work. And that they're tirelessly going at that. And I appreciate it and I respect it. And, you know, we all have to deal with this shortfall of money and, you know, we'll all do the best we can. We all are trying to do what's best for the county and for our residents. And I think people need to know that. It's not always perfect, but we're doing our best.
Thank you, Controller Phillips. Any other comments for this evening? I do have a couple, and I want to start with reiterating something that Controller
I'll
Phillips.
see you tomorrow.
Which is that I just want to really thank particularly Brian Corson, but each of our three citizens appointees, Ms. Love, Mr. King, when they joined, what is it, 5 years ago, something like that. I had no say in it. It was Mary Ann Grace actually who appointed them as the previous executive director. But I think she did a tremendous job of bringing forth people who have lived experience that can be of benefit to a county jail. Ms. Love from the healthcare perspective, Mr. King from reentry, and Mr. Corson from the treatment for people who are dealing with addiction. And not just having the background that they had, but for each of the three of you, the amount of heart and soul you've put into the work that has occurred under these last 5 years of transformation is extraordinary. And it's taken a lot of effort. It's taken a lot of, you know, oftentimes criticism that I think isn't always delivered in the most constructive of ways. And Ms. Brown, I regret that I didn't respond to your allegations previously more directly, but Mr. Corson does not vote on contracts. He may support as part of this organization whether the Jail Oversight Board believes something should be considered for county council, but Mr. Corson doesn't serve on county council. County council makes those decisions around allocation of spending. So I think for someone who's given literally thousands of at least hundreds of hours of his time over the last 5 years for no personal gain other than the fact that this is his life's story, is helping people who are at this juncture in life. I think it's really regrettable that you go after him like you have. So I'm sorry, ma'am. You had your time and I didn't interrupt you. Ma'am, if you continue to speak, you're going to, ma'am. If you don't, okay, you're going to have to leave now. And it's unfortunate because I was going to continue to speak about some of the things you raised, but if you can't. Ms. Brown, you're going to have to go. I'm only doing it because I care deeply about this institution. Where was I?
Correcting the record.
Thank you. Yeah. So, you know, I really thank Mr. Corson. As terms expire this month, we have posted for folks who also care about putting their support toward this. I will say that there is no term limit. So those who have served, they're certainly welcome to continue. But Ms. O'Malley has an important decision to make in front of her about who gets appointed. You know, and again, I will say we have a lot of folks such as CPR who come forward with criticism at times, with suggestions, their perspective that we can't individually have. And that is so welcome. That's how we improve this institution day in and day out. That stands in stark contrast to someone who comes in for what I can only imagine is some personal interest, but it certainly isn't delivered in a way that seems to have the best interests of the institution at mind. Wildly exaggerating things that are said or outright making things up. There is certainly truth to some of the statements that Ms. Brown makes, but these are issues that we are fully aware of. If we could wave a magic wand and we could fix the HVAC tomorrow, we would do it. If we could, improve some of the security features of this institution that we inherited that had not been invested for the 25 years it existed prior to our taking control, we would do it. But that's not the institution that we inherited. We are working like hell to find ways to move up that time frame. But if anyone would like to join our meeting tomorrow night, they're going to hear us getting yelled at about the fact that we're spending too much money. This is what we are in order to address the problems that we have here. I would love to have a fully staffed institution tomorrow, but anyone who would like to, with good faith, read the newspapers and find out that the challenges that we have in Delaware County, they're replicated across the state and across this country. There is no easy solution here. We can't just throw millions of dollars at what we pay. We have raised pay extraordinarily. In the 2 years since the transfer took place, introductory wages have gone up by roughly, I think it's 70%, 70%. And that's still not enough to fully staff. So we are trying. We are trying to get a collective bargaining agreement passed, but that's something that requires both sides to agree to. When that gets approved, it will certainly make tremendous strides in our ability to fully retain. So I'm sorry to rant, but
I gotta go to Delaware County Community College.
Don't seem to be bringing forth their.
Got your food? You ate your food? You want to eat some more?
But rather, I can only assume.
Okay.
That's all I have for today. But I thank you for indulging me. If there is nothing further for this evening,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
give me the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?